The internet has been around for a while. Some people say that it dates back to 1943, at least theoretically. I'm going to say 1993 is when things really started to happen. It's been interesting to watch. Search engines started coming out in about 1993, and there was the first engine that came out was called W4, which was the World Wide Web Wanderer. And it was the first one to get off the ground. The whole process was like airplanes and rockets. You know, the first 10 or 15 or 200 blow up and crash and burn, and that's exactly what happened in the search engine optimization world. The World Wide Web Wanderer went out and sucked up too much data too fast, and it locked up, crashed, caught on fire, something happened, and it never worked again. Kind of a funny story. I don't know, maybe that was Al Gore's engine. So, 93, another couple engines come out, W4-2, which was the World Wide Web Worm. Much better job this time around, and so was the Jump Station, which was the third one that came out. Both of these engines were smart. They actually were able to house data and do what they were supposed to do, but they would actually rank you in chronological order, which means if you are a Boston attorney and you submit your website, you're number one. If you're a competitor, another Boston attorney steps up and submits to their website, now they're number one and you're number two. So it didn't really work that well because you weren't really getting relevant results, and whoever was most recent was the one who was going to show up number one. So it's very similar to a Craigslist posting. Excite shows up finally on the scene, and they're the first legitimate branded search engine, and everyone remembers Excite. A couple gentlemen from undergrads from Stanford University made the engine, and it worked very well. I'll talk about the difference between search engines and directories in a minute, but essentially they became the first legitimate engine that everyone knew about. They went on to buy WebCrawler, and they sold out in late 90s for $6.5 billion. A couple kids. So they were bought by a company called At Home, and At Home ran them into the ground in 2 years and went bankrupt. So they were fire sold for $10 million. So as an acquisition manager, if you buy something for 6.8 and sell it for $10 million, that's you're going to lose your job. I guess everyone lost their job because they went bankrupt. So sort of the history of SEO, we talked about the W4, the first one. WebCrawler came out pretty early. Excite, of course, very early. Then you start to see Alta Vista show up, Northern Lights, some of the different engines showing up, All the Web, Ask Jeeves. And there became a major consolidation, very similar to what you see or what we saw in the banking industry for the last 15 years. Medium-sized banks gobbling up small banks, and then big banks gobbling up medium-sized banks. And so if you take a look at this slide, it's pretty amazing how these search engines, taking a step backwards, this is Yahoo, and 1995, do you remember this screen? They're actually a directory, and again, I'll explain the difference between a directory and a search engine soon, but basically they're alphabetized and you have to click your way to results. But in the phone book, which is very similar to a phone book, to become number one, what do you have to do? Well, you have to buy your way to the top or to the front, or you have to start with A, right? So AAA roofing is going to score higher than, Bob's Roofing, right? Well, we found out very quickly that numbers scored higher than letters. So now we change our name to First Interstate Relocation to where we have a 1 there, and now you're ahead of all the A's, even the AAA's. And then a 0 is higher than that. And then we found out, because it was really humans against robots at that time, that you could be number one by putting little periods or commas or spaces. So there's actually 24 characters before the 0 that would allow you to be number one. So you could put, and the absolute number one was the space bar, right? So we'd start submitting our company name. It could be anything now. It could be, zebras, but if you put a space in front of it, you're number one. So it's very interesting how all that took place. Yahoo caught on very quickly, about a year later, and that didn't work anymore. But it's kind of a fun story in the past here. Okay, so the engines were competitors all along, but they are also very much working together. Like if you see Inc. to me here in the middle, they would feed NBC and i1 and AOL Search and MSN a lot of their primary or secondary results. Google would feed Yahoo in the early days. This is actually a picture of 2000 when Google started to come on the scene. Little did Yahoo know they were about to kill them. But Google is feeding Yahoo and Netscape at this point in 2000. So we just talked about consolidation. Now look at what's going on. You have really 3 major players, and everyone else has disappeared. Now Alta Vista is still here, okay, but they're getting fed results by Yahoo. And you'll see Lycos is still there, but they're getting fed by Yahoo, and so is All the Web, while Google feeds Ask, i1, Netscape, and AOL, which means if you go to AOL and you type in your keyword phrase, the results that you get aren't really AOL's, they're Google's. So Google feeds AOL, so you might as well go to Google. Being a standalone, that's formerly MSN, Microsoft Engine, still very strong. So in short, the 3 major players are Google, Yahoo, and Bing. And there's a few others out there, Ask Jeeves, but you know, it's really not big. And this is a Pac-Man for a reason, because Google continues to clamp down and gobble these other engines. And this is 65% of what really matters is Google in terms of market share. What we hear now and what we're seeing on analytics is it's closer to 80%. So that mouth is continuing to close down. So Google is something that I'll be talking about all day, a lot more than the other engines, because I think they're really the players. Okay, search engines versus directories. A search engine is a robot, okay? And you see this guy here, he does not have eyes. It looks like he does, but he doesn't. It's completely blind, and it will crawl through the web. A directory is a human. So you have 4 or 5 directories like LookSmart and Yahoo and DMOZ that are pretty important, but search engines still dominate. Primarily, search engines are out there leading the way. So this is an example of a directory. And how they're different, again, they have humans that verify when you submit your website to them, and they'll look with their eyes and say, this is a legitimate site, and they'll let you in or not. You'll also know with a directory that you click your way to results with your mouse. So if you're looking for a residential appraiser, real estate appraiser, you would click on business, then click on real estate, and then click on appraiser, and then click on residential. So that's how you find your results that way. And they're also still alphabetized. Engines, spiders, are a little bit different. Instead of using your mouse to click your way to the results, you just type in what you're thinking. And I think that's why search engines are probably a little bit more popular, is because people are just kind of lazy. They just want to say, I'm looking for airline tickets, and they type in their query, they hit submit, and then the spider goes out and finds the results for them.